Greetings. So you have your website on probably the world's largest CMS. Is that right? Do you know the name? I don't know about that one. However, let me make that very clear. Almost 80% of the websites, the world's largest websites all around the world, they use WordPress CMS. I use it for my own website. And of course, many of my clients use WordPress too. However, there is someone who is my guest today, special guest. They started almost 6 years ago. I wish we have connected 6 years ago. He is the founder of RebelMouse. It's and the CMS for news websites. Many, like all the publications are being run, and also the one of the world largest airline. I'm going to have him share that what the name is used that new CMS, and I'm sure the new CMS RebelMouse is probably many times better than WordPress. And of course, we will find out from our guest today what the heck, how he ended up in starting something against all the odds of world largest CMS and starting a new one. And they are very, very successful. Let me share with you. And here's the best part. Whole of his team, my guest team, is all virtual. They are working from their home office or maybe from some other remote telecommute offices. And of course, that is a huge new big plus what we can learn from our guest today. Please join me to give a warm welcome to my guest, Andrea Breanna from New York. In case you don't know me, my name is Mohammed Siddique. I'm your host of Growth Hacking Show. We bring interesting guests with specialized experiences so we can all learn together. So please welcome Andrea. Andrea, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be on.
Andrea, let me start with this. Where were you? What happened? Who you were surrounded with? That inspired you to 6 years ago to actually start the RebelMouse.
Yeah, so I think there was a good 35 years in the making for that. I think the first important thing to understand is that I was born in Mexico, and I grew up in California as a white Mexican in the closet and confused about being transgender. And so while I looked like a young white male, I felt like a Mexican girl. And so the internet became the place that I could express my identity. And so as early as CompuServe, I was Andrea. And so I fell in love with the internet because it gave me the freedom to be who I am. My dad started a software company, so I started to learn code when I was young. I was like 10 or so. And I found very early in my career that the other box that I didn't fit in was to just be a developer. And so the next big circumstance that led to RebelMouse is that I was CTO of Huffington Post. I had met Jonah Peretti, who's the founder and CEO of BuzzFeed, in grad school. And we had a great love, the two of us, of creating things that would go viral. I did the Dog Island with him as a project, which was a lot of fun. And he had done a couple of other things, and that all led to Huffington Post, where we weren't intentionally thinking about building a CMS. We were building a platform for smart editors to be able to be super efficient and understand distribution. So they could win on search, they could win on social. We sold the company to AOL, and I ran product design and engineering for all of AOL's media properties. And that's where I witnessed just how bad the CMS world is and how slow it is and unable to keep up with the tech giants, because you can no longer move at your own speed in today's world. So RebelMouse, we're really proud, has built two of the biggest new media companies, including the Dodo and Axios, which are actually bigger than the Huffington Post by most measures, if not all. And we work with United Airlines as one of our biggest clients. We power their hub. So it's a really fun place. We're a very premium CMS. It's not just for anyone. It's for when you're running your business on it. And then it is far more sophisticated and high performance than a WordPress can be.
Okay, I got it. I listened to your last statement very carefully. Okay, great. So it's a premium CMS where you need a reliability and a speed and actually, get on social connected and get your distribution right.
Yes.
Mm,
So
okay.
we create, there's two things that we create is more reach across social, and that's through productizing the lessons learned in the strategic development of the dodo, which has the most popular video on Facebook ever, and will reach 100 million people on a single day on Facebook while spending only 1,000 a month on Facebook. So it's real organic reach. And then the lessons of Axios, which has tremendous loyalty. We have properties that get 13 pages a visit, which if you check your own GA, that's remarkable.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's amazing. Thank you so much. Andrea, let's get something to share with our audience, based on your experience of working with the CMS and plus so many of your clients are using it, you can actually see the stats and everything. So what are the top 3 missteps to avoid to grow your business?
Well, I think one of the missteps that I made, to share something personal for the founders and CEOs, is that you can ignore what I call the culture gap. And so RebelMouse is 6 years in, and we had at least 2 or 3 years where, in retrospect, the culture that I described us to having, the culture I thought I had, or at least the culture I wanted to have, was not the culture that I actually had. And what happens is that as a founder CEO, you usually end up letting culture worsen for the short-term gain. So an aggressive salesperson who's mean to everybody but hits their numbers is the most common scenario where a founder CEO can make the mistake of allowing that to continue. And I've learned that there is no medium and long-term gain out of breezing by that. So I think really paying attention to the culture gap, we put happiness as the first most important metric at RebelMouse. And it's made all the other metrics move really fast. The difference of a high performance team and an okay team is growth and how much of it. And so, but you need to have people really feeling happy, safe, successful. And so that when they think of work on a Sunday night, it's not with an impending sense of doom. But that's your obligation as a founder CEO. So that I think is probably the most important one that I've learned. There's stuff that we see clients do all the time. So sometimes, especially on growth. So people create narratives that justify the lack of growth. The most common one we saw this year is people were saying in media companies, people were saying, you can't grow on Facebook anymore. Facebook's changed everything. The algos are different. So that would justify their drop. And what I see is that they look for justification of it while ignoring evidence of the opposite. We're lucky enough, we aren't just a vendor. There's a part of our company that's a creative agency, and we work strategically with our clients deeply. So when the Facebook algo shifts, we always see people win and people lose. But what's important is to understand the difference so that you can course correct. A really good example that a lot of people are making a very concrete mistake in media today still is they'll serve a pop-up ad that's full screen if you click from a Facebook link because they've sold it and it's a high CPM, so that's where they're making their money. Facebook was very public about their decision to throttle abuses that experiences that they felt were bad for users, and very clearly listed as a full screen pop-up ad. So a lot of companies just said, well, Facebook's going to decline for us. That's a really good example of the wrong narrative. The right thing is, oh my God, Facebook changed that. How do we react to it? And so on our platform, we shifted people quickly so that they could continue to serve that high CPM ad, but never if the traffic was coming from Facebook. And so they could grow again. So I think the summary is you've got to really question assumptions and question narratives that are justifying the lack of growth.
One more.
And then the other one that's very concrete as you're growing in a startup and everything is that I think I hired salespeople too soon. And by the way, at all. It turns out that my company runs much better without salespeople. The prospects end up meeting the people who they'll work with. We work with generally, like, we aren't doing thousands. Our goal is not to become the next WordPress in every small website, but we are already bigger than Tumblr by our reach. So our platform is now huge, and we want to suck up that top 10,000 of Alexa, where they have just a way better performance. So for us, it's about meeting us. And a salesperson is usually the person who's farthest from understanding the product and tends to be the most expensive. So it causes culture gaps, but it causes cash drains. And people often, and I made the mistake, I didn't course correct. If 1 out of 4 salespeople are performing, you're not ready for salespeople. And if you can be creative and realize ways to do it in a different way that can be super successful and much more genuine. So our relationships with clients are really beautiful now. And we've spent a lot of time course correcting the silly things salespeople would tell them to misguide them. Not intentionally, but that's just how they do it mostly. So that's my third, is just really don't hire them too soon and question if you hire them at all.
Wonderful. Thank you, Andrea. I really appreciate that you're being vulnerable by sharing it publicly. That's good. So that's being authentic and genuine. Really want to help others with what missteps to avoid. So let's get on, keep going on this. And then the next, my question is, which is on the positive side, not on the negative side. It will be, what are your top 3 success secrets to grow your business?
Well, I'm going to put, I was slightly shifting the order in my head.
Yeah.
There's one that is a little bit ethereal, but it's been fundamental for me in a transformation on RebelMouse. We've gone from a company that raised a lot of capital, but also was burning a lot of capital, to a company that's profitable and growing. And so it's an exciting time, but as I thought through the change I had to make, this one came from a CEO coach that I had who's wonderful. Her name is Katja Barisan. And what she told me is that it's important to go and visit your vision, that your vision is a creature. It's alive and it has opinions and feelings, and you have to figure out how to go talk to your vision. That was a long process, which I continue. I think it's now that I realize that mental exercise and the importance of it. I think it took me a long time. It took me 1.5 years to come back to her and tell her, Katja, I think one thing you should think about with your own clients, because I bet a lot of us go through it, is that my first visits to the vision, when I first did that exercise, I was embarrassed of how it went. The vision actually had criticisms of me. It had, you're not doing this right. You're missing that. And you're not, and by the way, it's not an exclusive relationship. Ideas are never yours. Ideas exist in the ether, and if you think it's my idea, you don't understand ideas yet. It's an idea that others have if you have it too. So if it's a vision you have, it's a vision others have too. And my first visits to the vision, I realized how I had missed some really fundamental things and how critical the vision was of how I was implementing it. And so it's hard to bring that one fully back to into the weeds, but it affected a lot of product decisions, a lot of relationships with clients, a lot of how we priced things. so that it really would map back to that vision. So that strange mental exercise, which is almost, I suppose, like meditation, but it requires you finding peaceful time, and not when you're exhausted, but at whatever's your most energetic and creative time of the day, to do that as a habit. And it doesn't have to be daily, but it certainly has to be a monthly type of a thing, at least, where you go and check in. So that one has been very successful for me. The other one I think that's really important for me is that I'm someone who's a very collaborative person. And so I always love getting other people's advice. But in the end, it took me a little while to realize fully the importance of being myself, and validating that I could be unique and that could be successful. And so, some gut instinct in Jeff Bezos said it's okay not to buy a normal desk and tell them all I'm using doors. And that's like started to carve out what would make him different. It's in these decisions that you think maybe are a little crazy and a little out there that are actually not out there at all. They're the core. They're the things that should guide you. Obviously, for me, coming out as transgender and everything, it's been a big experience, but a beautiful one that the business is growing as part of it, because I think there's a sense of real mojo between the whole team and our clients of how important it is that we are confident being ourselves. For me personally, it meant that I never ran development. Since I learned to code when I was little, nobody could ever tell me what's the right process to code. And I would see people doing waterfall or RUP or agile, following it like a Bible, and it's inefficient. And I know how to build teams. I knew how to use the globe and not need everyone in an office. I didn't need anyone to validate that for me. But when I started RebelMouse, I had never built a sales team or a sales process. And so I did what I was told instead of what I knew would be different and that I could do different. And so that being true to yourself, instead of shying it away and trying to be like everyone else, where is it that you lean in? Because it's a noisy world. And if you're not unique, you're not different, how do you stand out with your product? How do you fill a need for a customer that's not already filled, or do it better? And so that one has been vital to me. And then the third one is that I think it's tremendously important to extend your narratives. And this is part of the global team, but it's a plea I have with the entire software industry and the growth industry and the marketing industry, is that we're constantly treating minorities, which is the majority of us, by the way, as second-class citizens. And so as a concrete one, living here in New York, if a founder, CEO, or management team level manager meets someone young who just graduated from college, they go on a walk or meet them in the office. The job that they have for them that's specific, they start thinking beyond that job for this person. They say, oh, I like this person so much, and they feel like us and everything. So they'll begin as an intern on the editorial product, but one day, I'll bet you she'll be our editor-in-chief, or he's going to become a CTO. And so they make a little pact and a narrative that's very beautiful. This is something that's positive. But what they don't do, and this is what has been so successful for me, is extend that narrative. So that, for example, when I met Sandra, who's in Eastern Europe, and you do a video screen share, then most people say, oh, I have a QA task for you, or a CSS job for you, or a post to social for us. They don't extend the narrative. That's the job I have for you. And you're missing some of the most brilliant people in the world. And it's a time right now where I feel politically everything's becoming tribal and clans. I don't believe in nation states. If you respect someone more because they live within some political border you live in and not, I don't understand it. Maybe because I was born in Mexico and grew up in the US and my wife is Bulgarian, but I believe we're all equal. And so Americans don't have some inherent superiority. But the way tech works is that even an Indian man in the valley will treat an Indian man in Bangalore as a second class because I'm like better than you for being here. And the resolution to this is to acknowledge our subconscious bias and to extend our narratives for our own teams and the people we come in contact with. And that can be, even if you don't do distributed, it might mean that you meet a Black woman who didn't graduate from college, but you see what she could be good at instead of just giving this thing you know she can do. And so that building, I think, is what builds a company, is by building the people with you.
Wonderful. That's amazing. Such a unique experience. You know, I love when you said visit your vision. In fact, make a frequent one. So don't forget that. It's not a one-time, you know, so that's such a unique. I really appreciate that, Andrea. Andrea, how you are growing your business like RebelMouse right now in this world?
Well, so we use our own product. I'm very proud. We really do focus on content. I believe in content. I believe that ideas change culture, and that we've never had such an infrastructure for the exchange of ideas as we do today. So for me, we do a lot on rebelmouse.com, on Medium, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Instagram, which is a mixture of us sharing thought leadership posts so that if you actually aren't a client of ours, we still have people say, I spent hours reading your site last night. So while there's a big pitch for the request a proposal, there's an infinite scroll, and it's a stream of articles that explain us and our work, but also, you know, really give you tips and understanding of like, what's Facebook's new update for you? And what does it mean? And how do you survive in an adless world? So we see a lot of our pipeline built from establishing the expertise that we have. We have 2 writers on staff, and we meet twice a week. I meet with them twice a week. We have a content machine now. A lot of it comes from my head, but also I've grown with our own team. So anybody on the management team is also always thinking about what content should be created. And so content is a huge piece for us in terms of growing it, and it can be very effective.
Great. Great. So you're going through a major piece of the content, sharing a valuable content, adding a value to your readers' business and their life, and on your website, and a plus on all extended to distribute to all social media. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. And what makes us unique, what we know, we had to figure it out. So for example, in the beginning with content, we did a lot of 101 type of like social for dummies type of things, posts. But we realized our audience is the people who get it. They run digital at large companies, etc. And so they would just like, ugh, it's not for me. But now, if you are in digital, etc., and you read, then we're really giving you insights you're not finding elsewhere. So it's been it's been very rewarding for me. I love the writing part and the content and video, and that's been, I believe it's right for every company. You just have to find your voice.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Andrea. How the community of Growth Hacking Show can support you?
Well, for those of you who have the budgets for it, we'd love to work with you. We have ways to be creative. We don't just force a single product pricing. We do need you to have a business underneath it, so there's a budget to work with. But we are all about creating growth, and we are very partner friendly. So you might want to take to a client that's stuck. A lot of people who work with growth have to struggle with stupid websites they can't fix. And what we can do is get, as an introduction, we can do tests, et cetera, that can prove how far you can take the growth of that company with a really high performance site. So it starts around budgets of $10,000 to do a smaller, like, prove that it's worth it. And in general, companies have 60,000 to, we go to 7 figures with United Airlines and big brands. But if it makes sense, Andrea at RebelMouse.com is my email. And we'd love to explore, because as we build, it's very important that we're a platform that's connected to an ecosystem. And so there's an increasingly, there's a group of people who understand how to use our software and then represent and use it for their clients. And so we really would give you an advantage, and we'd love to talk with you about that.
Wonderful. Go ahead and connect with Andrea and also visit the rebelmouse.com, and there's a request for proposal. Just click on that and just follow the process. I'm sure you will be talking to Andrea or the team members. So Andrea, as we're about to wrap up, what would you say as a final word?
I would say, help me change the industry. We're all in this together. You're decision makers, you have budgets, you have plans, you're building the world. We have to fight unconscious bias. We have to create a safe place for women to work. We have to include minorities, and that's the secret path to growth. We're 90% minorities and LGBT at RebelMouse, and the opportunity to open your mind and be socially aware is also connected to your own growth, because it takes advantage of talent that nobody's taking advantage of right now. So look for those people that other people are ignoring or treating like garbage, and treat them really well.
Great. Thank you so much, Andrea Breanna, the founder of RebelMouse, for sharing your wisdom with us today on the behalf of Growth Hacking Show community and our entire team. We really appreciate you. This is Mohammed Siddique signing off from Atlanta, Georgia, wishing you good luck, good sales, and I do our podcast again with another amazing guest. Until then, all good wishes.
Thank you so much for having me.